ability of Hong Kong courts to rule on Hong Kong laws has been called into question by Beijing. In fact, China says local courts have no power to decide whether or not legislation breaches the territory's constitution. And all of this comes a day after the Hong Kong High Court ruled that the controversial face mask ban was incompatible with the Basic Law. Beijing has slammed the ruling, saying that it openly challenges the authority of the Chinese government as well as the governance of Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam.
香港特别行政区法律是否符合香港基本法，只能由全国人大常委会作出判断和决定，任何其他机关都无权作出判断和决定。
Hong Kong's chief executive says she's aware of Beijing's statement and respects its grave concerns, but she's declined to comment further. Now, for more on this, Olivia is in Beijing. So, Olivia, what else did Beijing say about the High Court ruling?
Well, today we heard from China's top legislature as well as its state council, both expressing strong opposition towards that ruling from Hong Kong's High Court. Now, the National People's Congress Standing Committee said that it is deeply concerned about this ruling. It said that its deputies have also expressed very strong dissatisfaction. And now the crux of the matter here is that it says that when it comes to deciding whether or not regulations in Hong Kong are in line with the Basic Law or not, now that decision and that judgment can only be made by the National People's Congress Standing Committee and by Beijing, essentially, and that no other organ has the right to decide this, essentially saying that the Hong Kong High Court has overreached in this ruling as well. And another thing that Beijing has said is that this ruling has seriously undermined the legitimate power of Hong Kong's chief executive and government as well. Now, we have to remember that the emergency ordinances, which date back to the colonial era, were invoked to impose this mask ban. And then the High Court ruled that the emergency ordinance was incompatible with the Basic Law. But today, what Beijing is arguing is that the emergency ordinances were adopted into the Basic Law back in 1997, and there is therefore no incompatibility, so to speak of. And this is something that the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office here on the mainland also echoed this view, and they also took it a step further and said that this ruling will generate a lot of negative social and political impact, and that when the anti-mask law was invoked, it actually did play a positive role in deterring violence and rioting as well. And it has urged the Hong Kong government and its judicial organs to exercise their responsibilities in line with the Basic Law to end violence in Hong Kong.
So, Olivia, then what does it mean for Beijing's relationship with Hong Kong?
Well, it really depends on what is to happen next. And the National People's Congress Standing Committee says it is studying the options and suggestions from its deputies. But it's clear, really, that Beijing is reiterating that it has the final say when it comes to interpreting Hong Kong's Basic Law. And it's really part of a strengthening stance that we've seen from the mainland in recent days as violence has continued to escalate in Hong Kong. Now, what mainland analysts are saying here about what could happen next is that the Standing Committee could make a decision very soon, and they could decide to issue an interpretation of the Hong Kong Basic Law so that there is no ambiguity. And this can be done on the initiative of the NPC itself, or it could be done upon the request of the Hong Kong Court of Final Appeal. And the expectation of one of the analysts that I spoke to is that the National People's Congress is likely to act pretty quickly and as soon as possible, given the volatility of the situation in Hong Kong. Now, since 1997, the NPC has issued 5 interpretations of the Basic Law. The most recent time that it has done this was back in 2016, if you recall the saga involving lawmakers being accused of not taking their oaths to office office properly, and the NPC Standing Committee then had ruled that all lawmakers must swear allegiance to Hong Kong as part of China, and that they will be disqualified if they change the wording of the oath. And this interpretation of the law has caused controversy. So when you ask about the future relationship between Hong Kong and Beijing, on one hand, there will certainly be questions raised again about the autonomy and independence of the Hong Kong judicial system. But on the other hand, the Beijing perspective is that the Hong Kong courts are not doing enough and that they have been too lenient on protesters, which is the reason why we are continuing to see violence and chaos in the city.
Okay, many thanks for that update. Olivia speaking to us from Beijing.